Welcome, everybody, to the Luke Beasley Show. So good to be with you, as always. Apologies to anyone who was watching the pre-stream activity. As far as scheduling went, obviously I go live at 5 p.m. Eastern every day, Monday through Friday. But today, I got a call around 4:30, and had, long story, pretty much my vaccine was ready for a meningitis vaccine that I was getting, and I'm kind of urgently needing to get it done for a thingamajig that I need it for. And yesterday I went with an appointment. They didn't have any vaccines left, so she was going to call me when it was ready. I assumed today, since it had gotten so late in the day, that they just hadn't gotten it in yet, but then she called, and since I kind of need it time sensitively, I rushed over there. So then I rescheduled the live stream, bumped it back to 4:30 or 5:30, but then it was so quick. She just lifted up my shirt, stabbed my arm. I was out there in 2 seconds, so I was able to make it by our normal stream time. So here we are. Welcome back, everybody. We have, as usual, a humongous show. So much to go through. I'll give some time for people to hop in. I know probably with the rescheduling nonsense, it didn't send out notifications ahead of time, as usual, so give a second. But today we're going to be talking about Pramila Jayapal getting her life threatened, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez getting sexually harassed. Let's see, we're going to be doing kind of an update on that 10-year-old girl who was raped and all of the misinformation that flew around from the right wing, and they didn't really retract. They just changed their messaging because they tried to pretend it was a lie, but really it was a real story that is now verified and someone's been arrested for it. And then one other story. Let me get to reminding myself what the heck we're talking about. Oh, and then Steve Bannon. Guys, this is crazy. Audio got leaked of Steve Bannon just completely exposing the whole plot before the 2020 election happened to claim it was stolen regardless of what happened. Hey, true crime analyst. And Jeremy, what's up? But then after we do the news segment, so for anyone who hasn't been watching, normally, just as a reminder how we structure the shows now that I do these full live shows, part one of it is all the news. So like for the first 45 minutes, usually sometimes an hour, sometimes 30 minutes, whatever, I go through and just give you all the news, usually 4 to 5 stories. And then what I do after that, called post show, is just kind of more general live stream content. Where I react to stuff, and today we're going to be watching some Jesse Lee Peterson, who's a goofball. And the reason for that is my audience is kind of split, where some people love the like quick news and segment form, so then when I do the live show this way, I can take out those segments and upload them. And then some of my audience always wants super long form content that they can listen to like while they're walking around, you know. Some people who game like to have it on in the background all the time and stuff like that. So now I have clips uploaded on my channel daily, like 4 to 5, that people who are just trying to get their news quick can listen to. And then I have these kind of longer, multiple hour live streams that people can turn on for extended content. So that's what we're doing. I'll just go ahead and jump into our first story. Can everyone hear me okay? Hopefully. Everything's good. Let me make sure. Hold up. Actually, before we jump in, it looks like some of my settings have gotten changed. So I'm going to play a little video for y'all. Let me know if you can hear this correctly.
And what Trump's going to do is just declare victory. right? He's going to declare victory.
Yeah, that does sound right, I think. All right, cool. A little preview of one of the stories we're going to be talking about. All right. A very scary moment happened for Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal in the past days. A man, a presumably deranged man, a lunatic, went outside of her house and was screaming racist and threatening things, threatening to kill her, as well as we're about to look at here, making it about her being someone who immigrated here as a kid. And so he was found to have a gun outside of her house, and that, combined with him saying he wanted to kill her, makes for a very frightening situation. So luckily, she did call the police, and she ended up being okay. But super, super scary. If you're not familiar with Pramila Jayapal, she's a progressive congresswoman, and a Democrat, obviously. All right. Reading from the Washington Post. On Saturday night, Jayapal called 911 to report someone outside her home using obscene language and who may have fired a pellet gun, according to a probable cause statement from Seattle police obtained by King 5 News. According to the statement, police found outside a 48-year-old man, Jayapal's home, who was standing in the middle of the street with his hands in the air and a .40 caliber Glock 22 handgun holstered on his waist. So the unknown part was the pellet gun thing. That's what made them presumably, one of the things they thought they noticed was pellets being shot at their house. That's one thing. But then once the police actually got there, they realized he had a .40 caliber Glock on him. A neighbor told the police she heard the suspect yell something like, oh my gosh, I'm so sick of this. Something like, go back to India, I'm going to kill you. I don't know why that's hitting me a lot right now. And that she had seen the suspect drive by Jayapal's house 3 times while yelling profanities, according to the statement. The man was arrested shortly before midnight Saturday, police said. They said the man told them that he knew who lived at the residence and wanted to pitch a tent on the property, the statement said. So I had read this article already, but for some reason reading that quote, go back to India, I'm going to kill you, is really hitting me right now. So obviously, first off, before we get into my specific feelings on that part of it, just knowing that someone is outside of your house with a gun who's screaming that they want to kill you is incredibly terrifying. And I think people have a misconception that Congress people are well protected because they're people in power. And we, of course, see like the president and even senators have security. But a lot of these Congress people who are constantly demonized by the right, a lot of these progressive congresswomen specifically, they don't have security. And I'm scared every day for people like Jayapal, for people like AOC, Ilhan Omar, all these people who have been made, such figures for what the right hates and demonizes. And so it's so frightening to me that they don't have proper security to keep them safe. And she's sitting there with her husband, with her family. I don't know the specifics of her family, but point is, she's at home where you should feel safe, and someone's out there with a .40 caliber Glock saying he wants to kill you with the means to do so. Incredibly scary. So obviously, as I said, police ended up getting him, and Pramila Jayapal and her family are okay, but you can't imagine how scary that is when you know the sentiment that a lot of these crazy people have for individuals like Jayapal. So then to the specific thing about the go back to India, right before he said, I'm going to kill you. This is why we criticize as progressives and push back against people like Tucker Carlson, people like Donald Trump, and all of these right-wingers who constantly make it this us versus them when it comes to people who either were not born here or even just people who were born here but look different than what they think of as the good American archetype. it really matters, and it has consequences to the point where this guy feels justified and feels in his right to believe that just because someone immigrated here, I think for Pramila Jayapal is at age 16, they have no less right to be a member of our society and be a representative of our country. If you go through our process, which is very extensive to become a citizen, holy smokes. If you have ever looked at it, I had a person close to me in my life who immigrated and went through a long process to become a legal citizen, and it is extensive. I promise you, a lot of the citizenship tests that they take to become citizens have a lot of questions that native-born Americans would not know. Plus, it's just constant round after round of these checks before you actually become a citizen. So if you go through all of that, then heck yeah, you're an American and you have a right to be here. And for her, how amazing of a story is that? She comes here at 16, I think it said for educational purposes, and then rises all the way up to be a congresswoman, working to try to make the lives of her constituents better, hopefully. And in her case, she does push for really good policies that would be beneficial to her constituents. And so the idea that someone would hold the opinion of that person doesn't have a right to be here and that person should go back to the country they were born in is just disgusting. And I'm genuinely so sick and tired of it. And y'all know me, I'm super optimistic about the future most of the time, and I'm super willing to give people the benefit of the doubt and like try to see the best in Americans, even the ones that I disagree with a lot. But this is where I get so viscerally enraged. The idea that people like Jayapal and countless others who exist in our society, most of them honestly didn't even move here this generation, but even if they look like it, if they look like someone who isn't, as Tucker Carlson calls, a legacy American, which is just a massive racist dog whistle, then they hear sentiments like this expressed. And all of those videos that go viral of what people call Karens, but just people harassing others out in public for no reason, it seems like half of the time they go immediately to go back to your country, or you're not a real American, or whatever. And it makes you realize how many people walk around in our country and see others who don't look like them as less than, purely because they don't look like them. And so that's where I get just so upset. I'm going to read the quote to you again one more time. Quote, "Go back to India, I'm going to kill you." He wants to kill her because she came to America to try to live that American dream that we're so proud of. And she pretty much did it. She came here, she went through all of what she went through, worked hard, and became a congresswoman. That should be amazing. Regardless of if you support her policies specifically or if you would vote for her, I think everyone can recognize that's an amazing story. But no, other people see it as not being a real legitimate American or whatever. And it's disgusting. And I'm so sick of it. I'm so tired of people feeling like they can express this point of view without being completely outcasted from our society. I promise you, or I want you to know, I guess is a better way to put it, that you are proving yourself to be not as American as everyone else who you probably look down upon whenever you express the opinion that someone else is less than you purely because of where they were born, purely because of the way that they look. Because I was just listening to a historical breakdown walking through the rise of America and the founding and everything that led up to it, and then the years after. And let me tell you, one of the things that makes America unique is the fact that, as it said in this podcast I was listening to, America was invented. It was one of the rare countries that was invented. Do you know what I mean by that? People got there and started a new idea, a new concept, rather than it being a long line of historical peoples that developed and changed, and one nation formed, and then the next, and it fell, and a new one developed. People arrived here. Of course, we know the devastation that happened because we arrived here. But people arrived here and came up with a new concept of a nation that they wanted to create out of thin air. And that invention of the country we now know as the United States of America came from a bunch of people who immigrated here. Obviously not through a process like immigrating to a formalized country, but they traveled looking for a better life, and then they built one. They built a country so that they could have a better life right here. And then all throughout our history, that's how America grew to be what it is now. It's a bunch of people who came from faraway places, sometimes not that far away, but from other places to America, trying to live the American dream, trying to find that truth within the promise that America kept making. And that's what made America what it was. And that's what makes us so unique in our process becoming who we were, or who we are. And so Pramila Jayapal is a beautiful example of that American story. And lunatics like this man who was outside her house could not be more un-American in their view of the world. Okay, I'm sorry. That was much longer than I expected. How's everybody doing? Chat, chat, chat. All right, let's go ahead and get into this whopper of a story. Steve Bannon, former close Trump ally who has gotten an increased level of focus due to the January 6th Select Committee investigation and then these public hearings that we've been following, has come on under even more scrutiny recently because audio got leaked of him before the election, before the 2020 election, clearly laying out what Trump's plan was, regardless of if he won or not. And more likely, because it seemed like he knew there was a good chance Trump was going to lose, Steve Bannon, as we're about to listen to in this leaked audio, laid out the entire thing that Trump would end up doing, revealing that even people who were very familiar with Trump, who were close with him, already were aware that he was going to fraudulently claim victory, regardless of if he actually won. So we're going to get to the audio in just a second here. Crazy. This is smoking gun stuff. I just saw someone in the chat call it smoking gun. Yes, this is a smoking gun. This is an ally of the former president. Before all of these events transpired, saying and even laughing about the fact that Trump was going to cause all hell to break loose if he lost the election by claiming that he won. Before there could possibly be any fraud found, because the election hadn't even happened, there was already this awareness of people familiar with Trump that he was going to do this. Wow. Quote, on the evening of October 31st, 2020, this is from Mother Jones, Steve Bannon told a group of associates that President Donald Trump had a plan to declare victory on the election night, even if he was losing. Trump knew that slow counting of Democratic-leaning mail-in ballots meant the returns would show early leads for him in key states. His strategy was to use this fact to assert that he'd won, while claiming that the inevitable shifts in vote totals toward Joe Biden must be the result of fraud, Bannon explained. So that's kind of the little summary, but let's go ahead and listen to the leaked audio.
And what Trump's going to do is just declare victory, right? He's going to declare victory. But that doesn't mean he's the winner. He's just going to say he's the winner. The Democrats, more of our people vote early that count. Theirs voted mail. And so they're going to have a natural disadvantage, and Trump's going to take advantage of that. That's our strategy.
So as was laid out by many, many people before the election, there was an expectation, for a number of reasons that we've gotten into before, that in this election, Democrats would vote more by mail, causing a situation where votes would be counted in a more heavily Republican leaning direction at the beginning, and then as they counted the mail-in votes, it would bring in more Democratic votes. So then, before it even happened, their plan was to claim victory based on the early results, and then call it fraudulent whenever the rest of the votes get counted. But elections are not a race in the sense that it matters at all where people's vote counts are at different points of the night. The only thing that matters, obviously, is when all the votes are, enough of the votes are counted that it would be statistically impossible for them not to be losing, if you get my point. If all the votes are counted, that's when you know who won the election. It's not, hey, it's midnight on election night, and right now more votes are in this person's favor, so they're the person who's going to win. No, that's not even a hard concept to get your head around. So the idea that you would use the fact that sometimes disproportionate votes for one party get counted before the other to try to unlawfully stay in power is wild.
He's just going to declare himself a winner. So when you wake up Wednesday morning, it's going to be a firestorm. You're going to have Antifa crazy, the media crazy, the courts are crazy, and Trump's going to be sitting there mocking, tweeting shit out. You lose. I'm the winner. I'm the king.
Let's all laugh at us not us, but let's all laugh at the fact that someone we support is going to overthrow democracy.
And he'll be all over. He'll be going, "Where's Hunter? Is Hunter on a crack pipe?" I mean, no, he'll be, because then it doesn't matter. Remember,
what?
Here's the thing. After that, Trump never has to go to a voter again. He's going to fire Ray, the FBI director, and fire the He's going to say, "Fuck you." How about that? Because he's never going to. He's done his last election. Oh, he's going to be off the chain. He's going to be crazy. Also, if Trump is losing by 10 or 11 o'clock at night, it's going to be even crazier. Because he's going to sit right there and say they stole it.
Agree.
I'm directing the Attorney General to shut down all ballot places in all 50 states. It's going to be no. He's not going out easy. If Biden's winning,
guys, he said it all. That's exactly what happened. Either, this is what Steve Bannon's saying, either Trump is going to use the fact that votes get counted disproportionately for one over the other based on where votes are coming from and in what order they're counting them. And if Trump's leading in key states at some random point in the night, he's going to claim victory and then say it was fraudulent if, when the rest of the votes are counted, Biden surges ahead. But, even if that doesn't happen, even if he's down at the beginning of the night and down the entire night, he's still going to claim it was stolen. That was before the election, guys. And then that's exactly what happened. Now, we were able to predict that because Trump was pretty much previewing it himself, going out and saying, mail-in votes are going to cause the election to be stolen, and I'm not going to concede, and all these things. And of course, if he won the election, it wouldn't have been fraudulent. But if he loses, it's fraudulent. I mean, we all saw it. But hearing someone who is a Trump ally lay that all out in this leaked audio is wild. And I am so looking forward to, hopefully, if Bannon does end up having to testify in front of the January 6th committee in a way that we're able to watch, I'm so looking forward to him having to answer for this and answer for all of the different things he said in the lead up to January 6th, because you predicted the anti-democratic actions of a close ally of yours who was the president. And I want to know why you knew that. I want to know how much communication you had with Trump that gave you that certainty, or was it you just speculating like we all were? But regardless, it's disturbing. And how lighthearted his voice was in that. I mean, he's literally laughing with a group of people about how he knows, regardless of the election results, that Trump is going to claim victory. It's crazy. It honestly makes you think that they would never do this because election nights are so good for ratings, but they should just wait until all of them are counted and then release the results. Because if this is going to be how it is going forward, where you use any manipulation of the like data coming out at any given point to try to claim victory, then we're going to be in a scary spot going forward. All right, let's read chat. Nikki, we live in a constitutional republic and a representative democracy. We do live in a democratic country, yes. If you don't understand how you can be a democratic republic, then you need to get more educated. I don't know how to help you with that. But the whole, we live in a republic, is actually not as simple of a response as you would think. It's a simple-minded response for sure, but it's not a slam dunk, unfortunately for you. Wow, that's crazy. Alrighty, let's get into our next story. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was sexually harassed as she entered the House of Representatives, as she entered one of our primary government buildings. She's a congresswoman, and I have so many words for this man that I don't use on this show, and a disgusting man sexually harassed her. We'll watch the video and then discuss.
AOC, my favorite big booty Latina. I love you, AOC. You're my favorite. She wants to kill babies, but she's still beautiful. You look very beautiful in that dress. You look very sexy. Look at that booty on AOC. That's my favorite big booty Latina.
I want to do a little selfie.
I love it. My favorite AOC. Nice to meet you, AOC. Look how sexy she looks in that dress. Woo, I love it, AOC. Hot, hot, hot like a tamale.
I don't know. I really don't want to talk right now because I have only deeply to be regretted things to say right now. So first I'll say, do y'all remember whenever she sent out that tweet saying, hey, Republicans, you can stop obsessing over me and my boyfriend. If you want to date me, you can just say that. Or like, because you're mad that you can't date me or whatever. And all the right wing was like, oh my gosh, that's so pretentious. No one wants that. That's not why we're obsessed with you. Right there. An idiot right winger going up to her and sexualizing her. That's why he's obsessed with her. He's not obsessed with her because he's just so obsessed with the progressive policies that she pushes for and finds them so repulsive. No. He is a deeply sexually frustrated individual who has a horrible view of women and thinks that they are objects that he can sexualize, even as they're walking into Congress, as one of them is walking in Congress. And you think if he's willing to do this to her in a public place as she's about to go into the House of Representatives, what does he do in his private life? How horrible and misogynistic and disgusting and sexualizing and assaulting is he with people, women specifically, in his personal life? That should absolutely be looked into. And I feel for any woman who has to interact with him on a daily basis, any person, honestly. But this is what happens to people like AOC. People can't just focus on the policies she pushes for or the ways in which she pushes for them. Go after anything that's political related. But going on the steps of Congress and talking about her butt as she's walking in is just absolutely disgusting. Here's her response. I posted about a deeply disgusting incident that happened today on the Capitol steps, but took it down because it's clearly someone seeking extremist fame. It's just a bummer to work in an institution that openly allows this, but talking about it only invites more. Just really sad. And then she followed up with a tweet with the video that we just watched, saying, here's a video he posted of the incident. I was actually walking over to deck him because if no one will protect us, then I'll do it myself, but I needed to catch a vote more than a case today. I'm happy she didn't deck him for her own life so that she didn't have to deal with the legal consequences of that. But I understand completely the feeling like, you're going to sexually harass me and expect me not to do anything? No, that's not allowed. And as she said, and as we talked about in the previous segment about Pramila Jayapal, who got her life threatened, Congress people actually don't have security as they're going about random parts of their day. Now, obviously, there's security within Congress, but them as an individual, they don't. And how scary is that for someone like AOC, who gets hours dedicated to her on right-wing media, attacking her and calling her out specifically and demonizing her specifically because of many factors, one of them being that she is a woman of color who is attractive. And so a lot of conservative media finds that so fascinating and so intriguing that they cannot get their minds off of her for 1 second. And so, as she said, she wanted to go physically confront him because she doesn't feel safe on the part of congressional security. Like I said, I'm happy she didn't. That would have made him so happy if he could have gotten, physically struck or something by AOC. That's what he wanted. He wanted her attention. Anyone who has this deep obsession, sexual obsession with someone like AOC wants that. But I understand her feeling, and I just wish we could live in a country where you couldn't get fame on one of the sides of the political aisle by going around and sexually harassing people on the other side. And to be clear, if you think this is just me defending AOC or covering this story because it is AOC, I would not stand for any conservative politician having this done to them. Not a chance. And if you ever bring me an example of Marjorie Greene walking and some left-winger is doing this to her, then absolutely I will cover it and I will denounce it and I will be just as mad. But guess what? That doesn't happen because coverage of Marjorie Taylor Greene focuses on how outrageous she is, at least most left-wing coverage. How horrible the policies she pushes for are, or how horrible her rhetoric is. It doesn't focus on her as a woman or as anything about her physical appearance. At least the shows I watch in my coverage, of course there's probably an example of an idiot, but it's not to the extent of what we see of these left-wing female politicians, what is done in right-wing media to them, that leads to stuff like this. So, disgusting. She dealt with it wonderfully, and I just feel bad for her. Gosh, that story makes me so mad. Imagine you're just trying to, go to work for her, walking to the steps of the Capitol and, someone's talking about your butt. It's just disgusting. Hey, Patrick, for your next message, either you can talk to me, or I'm gonna have to. I won't block because I don't like blocking, but I just won't be looking at your messages anymore, so we won't be able to interact any further. So either you can say yes, I would like to come on over Discord and chat with me. We'll just talk about different places that we disagree, or you can say no, you don't want to come talk to me, and I won't be interacting with your comments anymore, because I want you to be able to argue your or defend your opinions, to my face, instead of just hiding behind your computer like a little, I don't say that, like a child, and not confident enough to argue the points that you are so proud of saying in my chat. So either you can come on, or unfortunately I won't be seeing your messages anymore. Actually, I can just hide your messages. Yeah, there we go. So let me know, because I really would love to chat with you about the Constitutional Republic stuff and all that. But if you're not brave enough to chat with me, then that's just a little bit sad for you. But that's okay. Okay. You can decide while I'm doing this next story. All right. A story that went very viral after the overturning of Roe v. Wade was that of a 10-year-old girl who got raped and impregnated because of it. And due to the laws that were enacted in the state she lived in, she was having to seek an abortion in a neighboring state, and having to travel to a different state to try to get an abortion, because they were making it illegal for a 10-year-old who was raped to get an abortion. So just to be clear, the stance is, if someone forces a 10-year-old to get pregnant, that 10-year-old should go through the brutal process of developing another being in their uterus, and then carrying it for 9 months, and then birthing it. A 10-year-old should be forced to do that by the state, is the position of this movement. Well, a bunch of conservatives called it a lie. Everyone you can think of, Congress people, Fox News people, all of the prominent right-wingers called it a lie. Here's an example of Tucker Carlson.
So what does it tell us that politicians are lying about this? Can you imagine? And why did the Biden administration, speaking of lying, just repeat a story about a 10-year-old child who got pregnant and then got an abortion, or was not allowed to get an abortion, when it turns out the story was not true? And by the way, when a 10-year-old gets pregnant, the first question is not, how do we get rid of the kid? The first question is, where's the rapist? Where's the rapist? Alice?
Deeply, deeply stupid what he just said. So first of all, the story was not false, as we're about to look at. But additionally, even just that little comment at the end, oh, why are we caring about whether or not she's able to have a right to make a decision about if she wants to create another being within her body or not? We should be talking about the rapist. Yeah, we should be talking about the rapist, which I had racist on my mind whenever Tucker Carlson's on my monitor. Shoot, 1 second. Whoa. Yes, we should be talking about the rapist and trying to find them, of course. But for that 10-year-old girl and for her family, I bet they're more concerned with, wait, am I going to have to create this being? Because the police can handle the rapist. We're not going to help with that too much besides giving our knowledge of the situation. We are going to have to deal with, for a very long time, the aftermath of that rape. And so that's probably top of mind for them. Clearly it was. So pretending that that's like an insignificant thing to be thinking about right after you get impregnated after a rape as a 10-year-old is stupid. But as I said, all across right-wing media, this is a lie, this is a lie, this isn't true, this isn't true. Jim Jordan tweeted out another lie. Kristi Noem tweeted out a lie from liberal media. Well, it wasn't a lie. Reading from the New York Times, an Ohio man has been arrested and charged with the rape of a 10-year-old girl whose travel across state lines to receive an abortion captured national attention. Gerson Fuentes, 27, was arraigned on Wednesday in Franklin County Municipal Court in Columbus, where he was charged with the rape of a child under 13 years old, a felony that can carry a lifetime prison sentence. He was being held on $2 million bond. The arrest and its connection to the case of the young rape victim was reported in the Columbus Dispatch after a public dispute over whether the story was true. So a man's arrested for it, and what a lot of these right-wingers kept doing is being like, oh my gosh, this can't be true because we're not hearing at all about the investigation into the rapist. And if there really was a rape, there would be an investigation going on of the rapist. Well, clearly there was. You were just too lazy to go find the evidence of that investigation going on, because they found and arrested and he was charged. Now, a detail I have to bring up right now, otherwise a bunch of people in my chat will freak out and say, oh, you're trying to avoid this detail, because this is all now right-wing media is focusing on, is the fact that this man is an undocumented immigrant. Yes, we have lots of people. Sometimes people of every group will do horrible things, and this person is absolutely horrible and should be held accountable for what he did. That has nothing to do with the conclusion that we are making in telling this story. The reason why we're telling this story is not just to say, hey, a terrible rape happened, because as sad as this story is, lots of terrible rapes happen, and we don't cover every single one of them. The reason why this one is particularly notable is because it directly shows you the impact of the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And it shows you one of the most extreme examples of whenever you take away people's ability to choose whether or not they want to go through the process of pregnancy, you have some devastating consequences. And you have examples like this one that you would think any compassionate human would realize is absolutely barbaric, to force a 10-year-old to put her own self in a lot of risk because she's super, super young to be developing a fetus in her uterus. And that's going to be a massively physically taxing and physically dangerous process. And then give birth, which is, for a 10-year-old, for anyone, but definitely a 10-year-old, absolutely could be traumatic. And then have to deal with the repercussions of what happens with now the born child. And so that's why this is such a notable story. So them flipping their script where they were denying it and saying it was a lie, and now they're just saying the whole story is about the person who did the rape. Listen, he should have the book thrown at him. Should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. All of those things, of course. Sounds like a reprehensible, no, not sounds like, is a reprehensible human being. But that's not why this story is even more important to discuss than all the other tragic rapes that happen on a regular basis. I'll say it one more time. This is the consequence, not the rape, but the situation she is now in having to travel across state lines to get an abortion, of Roe v. Wade. This is the consequence of Roe v. Wade. One of the people, as I mentioned, who was denying the story to be true was Jim Jordan. A CNN reporter caught up with him to question him after the story was proven to be true. What's happening? Apologies, 1 second. Maybe this will turn on.
Had a chance to speak to the congressman earlier today. What did he say?
Well, he claims that he was never questioning the girl's story. He said he was only reacting to a headline that he saw.
Jim Jordan was questioning the 10-year-old story by saying the whole story was a lie. Yes, that is what you're doing. You're questioning her story. No, you're not even questioning. You're just calling it a lie.
This was in reference to a story about the Ohio Attorney General Dave Yost, who claimed that he found no evidence to support this allegation that this 10-year-old girl from Ohio had to travel to Indiana to have this abortion. Jordan tweeted, "Another lie, anyone surprised?" Then he deleted that tweet. So I asked him about that and whether he would apologize to the family. Why'd you delete the tweet?
Well, because we learned that this illegal alien did this heinous crime. So we deleted the tweet.
Did you apologize to the girl and the family for suggesting it was a lie?
Never doubted the child. I was responding to a headline from your profession, the news profession, which happens all the time on Twitter.
Yes, you were responding to it by calling it a lie.
Doubted Joe Biden, which is usually a smart thing to do.
Just so enraging. Because step one, when the story came out, was to call it a lie. Step two, and focus all of your coverage not on, hey, even regardless of if this story is true, we know it's going to happen. It's going to happen where all people of all different walks of life, but in this example, let's say underage people are going to be raped and be impregnated from it. What do you think should happen? And right now, the stance of the Republican Party is they should be forced by the state after a certain week, if they don't realize they got pregnant or whatever, weren't able to find the resources yet, or in some of them outright ban, they should have to carry that being to term. That's the stance. And that's the conversation we're having. So they ignored that conversation to just say, oh, let's investigate it. This is true or not. We don't think it's true. We don't think it's true. That's the whole narrative, instead of discussing the larger point and just whatever. You can verify that it's true, but then it gets verified to be true, and the whole story shifts to be about how this person was an undocumented immigrant. So quite enraging, quite dishonest, and shows you just how callous this movement is getting. Okay, that concludes the... What's up? One sec, guys. All right. We have so much more to do, but that concludes the news portion. Now we're going to go into more fun content. No, I haven't hid your messages, Doug. I can see your messages. Wanna say hi all the time. All right, we're going to be covering Jordan Lee Peterson, just an absolute wacko. Oh my gosh. I didn't see this story. I saw rumors about it, but let's watch David's coverage of Jesse Lee, before we watch this, let's watch David's coverage of Jesse Lee Peterson being gay.
Okay, dozens of you have asked me to address this issue, and I'm ready to address it today. I've been waiting for the story to develop a little bit. Some of you might remember this guy named Jesse Lee Peterson. Jesse Lee Peterson is sort of a prominent black conservative. He's a Christian pastor. He has a men's counseling center in Los Angeles, which I've been to when I was on Jesse's program a couple of years ago. His studio and his radio show all go out of the same building. I believe it's called the Bond in Los Angeles. And it turns out, it appears that the very openly homophobic, anti-gay Christian pastor Jesse Lee Peterson is gay. And I'm going to talk about my...
This is cool. Why does this always happen? So many times. I mean, the most anti-gay politicians end up being exposed as gay. This guy, super anti-gay, comes out as gay. Is the core root of homophobia just people who aren't comfortable enough accepting it about themselves, so they have to hate other people who are comfortable? It's crazy.
Experience with him, which included him being pretty handsy with me, to be perfectly honest. I wasn't sexually harassed.
Whoa.
I didn't feel intimidated or anything. But at the time, I just wrote it off to this guy's just a character. He's just handsy. But I'm going to get back to that. Okay? So here's the story. The Daily Beast now reporting allegations of manosphere pastors' gay past, royal macho men. Jesse Lee Peterson has emerged as one of the right's most vocal anti-gay figures, but his one-time friends now allege that the pastor has had many same-sex relationships. I'm not going to give you every claim, but there are so many stories now of people saying, I was involved in sexual, men saying I was involved in sexual activity.
We have a pretty good viewership right now, so probably people here who aren't always here. As a reminder, super chats are a great way to make sure your message gets read and support the show, and then I get to, give you a lot of appreciation for it, as well as becoming a patron at patreon.com/LukeBeasley. You get access to a weekly bonus show, where I give you extra content for being a supporter. And we're trying to obviously still building. We're at phase 1 of the show's growth, but we're definitely hoping to build it into something big, and any level of support absolutely helps with that.
With Jesse Lee Peterson, he comes on to people aggressively in many cases, etc. Two of Peterson's former male associates came out in June with on-the-record interviews saying they engaged in sexual activities with him. Other men say he propositioned them. These allegations about the pastor who...
I'm so sick of this. If you have some issue with yourself, if you aren't comfortable with your sexuality and you hate the fact that you're gay, don't go around and hate other people because of that. Don't project your own insecurities onto other people. This is just... brutal. But we see it time and time again. People can't just work on themselves and deal with... I remember, I live, as y'all know, in Texas. And the community I lived in was kind of mixed. Like, my family I knew would be accepting of me coming out. And my community would have been like, yeah, But I went to a church where it was like constantly talked about, being gay is terrible, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And so I remember when I was younger and I first started like realizing about myself, I hated it. And I was like, no, this is terrible. I'm just messed up. Something's wrong. Blah, blah. And the first step was me, before I ever had any thoughts about telling anybody, it was just to like come to terms with it about myself and learn to love myself for who I was. That's what the step these people skip. They never sit with themselves and think, okay, this is something about me. I need to work on it before at all interfacing with the world on this topic. But instead, it's like, no, the way I need to process this is by hating other people for it.
Who is publicly staunchly heterosexual have ripped like an earthquake through the manosphere, prompting some Peterson allies to abandon him and prompting one manosphere conference to ban him altogether. The Daily Beast was not able to substantiate the allegations. Peterson's ministry, a brotherhood organization known as Bond, did
Now
not respond.
that's so weird. My name's Jesse Lee Peterson. I'm going to mentor you. And then it's just him like trying to get a feel on everyone.
Multiple requests for comment. Okay, so what's my view on this? I don't care about his sexuality per se. I really could not care less. At this point, I just don't care about people's sexual orientation. It's boring to me. I just don't care. Now, Jesse Lee Peterson is definitely an odd guy. He is seemingly obsessed with talking, despite being a black man, talking about how great white people are and how terrible
He does do
black
that a lot.
people are. And he's also obsessed with talking about how terrible and sinful and horrible it is to be gay. And he supposedly counsels young men out of being gay. Or
He
at least
must be, Jesse Lee Peterson must have like a mental complex, or I don't know what the proper word is for it, but something mentally that causes him to like flip. Like he, for some reason, isn't proud of being a black man, so then he's really hateful towards black people. He's not comfortable being a gay man, so he's hateful towards gay people. It's interesting.
That's what he claims to do. And it seems as though he is also gay himself. Okay. What I can tell you is that the vibe at his counseling office was really, really weird. So let me tell you what I personally observed.
Ooh, the tea.
Was he handsy at his office? He was. He kept, when we took pictures, he was sort of like weirdly hugging me, arm around me in a way that's like, it doesn't raise any red flag. I didn't think he was coming on to me. I didn't feel intimidated or whatever. There were people around. But it was just like, it was the first time I was meeting him, and he was a little bit handsy, and I didn't really think anything of it. Now, in this context, maybe that was something.
That's so funny. Again, this is not at all being hateful towards him being gay. Obviously, we all know that, obviously. This is him hating people for being gay and then being it himself. It's crazy.
Things sort of different. He was kind of like whispering into my ear, like not sweet nothings. It was actually about Trump. He was like, and I've said this before, like, you're going to vote for Trump, aren't you, David? You're going to vote for Trump. And I quite literally thought absolutely nothing of it, like nothing at all, like what people are describing. The atmosphere at his office with young men kind of hanging around.
Is this the first time I've heard of this? No. I've heard so many examples of this. It's still so funny, though. It's funny and sad,
The fact that he counsels young men with Christian counseling.
it's weird.
I did find it all weird, but not because I thought it was a way for him to proposition dudes, because it just seemed like this is the last guy who should be counseling young men.
Yes.
And of course,
every time I hear Jesse Lee Peterson talk about how he counsels young men, I'm like, you're the worst person to be doing that, because you literally don't understand like any of the things you talk about.
he takes advantage of this entire thing, where, as many of you know, to say one is a therapist, you actually need a license. You either need to be a psychologist or a licensed social worker, licensed
What is this
independent
footage?
social worker, psychiatrist, licensed mental health counselor. He was none of these things. The term counselor or coach can be used by anybody, and he claimed to be a counselor, and of course he's just a pastor. He doesn't actually have any therapy credentials, and that was the biggest red flag. And there were all these young men hanging around, and it was odd. So is it a shock? I mean, not really, in the sense that we've seen now dozens of the most openly and notably homophobic Christian figures actually be gay themselves. In that sense, it's not really a shock. It's only sort of surprising because this is the only one that I personally know, and who's, you know, I was with him at his office and all of these different things. So that's really all I have to say about it. It's not, I mean, you know, it's not, when people started emailing me saying, David, it turns out Jesse Lee Peterson is gay. Okay. No, I mean, that's, my concern is more about what are the lives that he has potentially ruined. Now, one other thing, there was this interesting moment. Jesse Lee Peterson's all about alpha, the alpha male. And he says, if you're on the left, you're beta. He's called me a beta male. And we had an interview where I asked him, are you in a relationship? Are you Are you sexually active or whatever?
Oh, that was this hilarious moment where Jesse Lee Peterson says, "No, I'm off sex," and David goes, and then he asks David, he's like, "What about you?" And David's like, "I'm very much on sex." I always remember that, made me laugh so hard.
And he said that he's off sex.
Oh, here we go.
And he's off sex because out of wedlock, I think was the term he used. You know, it's inappropriate or whatever. But he seemed visibly uncomfortable with the line of questioning. And again, is it all related to this entire hidden homosexuality thing that's going on? Maybe, I don't know. You know, in retrospect, hindsight starts to become clearer and clearer. But I don't really know that any one of these things is sort of like a big, oh, it should have been obvious that he was one of these homophobic gay guys. I really can't say that. I can only speak to my personal experience. And that's what it is. Very, I mean, it's a sad story.
Truly.
It's not sad that he's gay. It's sad that he's gay and homophobic. That's always
True.
sad when people can't just be who they are. And also that I have a very strange feeling about the entire counseling of young men. Quite frankly, we're talking about boys in many cases.
Well, and it's totally fine if he, wants to be with men in many settings. It's not fine if he uses his position of power and his counselor position. That's very unethical, which sounds like was, at least with one of the things I heard, it sounded like he was using his position of power as someone's counselor to sexually advance on them. And that's very unethical, man or woman.
That he was doing, and who knows what else we may learn about this in the future. That's about it. One of our...
Oh, that's crazy. Okay, I really want to see. Has he responded to this? Let me pull up his channel. I bet not. Usually they just kind of deny. Let's see. Jesse Lee Peterson. Recent videos.
Again, it doesn't have to be fancy. Start out where you are.
No. I feel like this is, I don't know when this came out, but what is his show like, honestly?
They act like the how is at the airport, or you are working out, making breakfast, lunch, and
Thank you so much to Jack for the super chat. Much love. Are you okay, Luke? Yeah, I'm doing great. What's up?
dinner, or whatever.
Oh, good point. What's his
Whatever.
latest tweet?
And don't forget to follow us, JLP Talk on Twitter. JLP Talk on Twitter. And Jesse Lee Peterson on Instagram. Jesse Lee Peterson on Instagram.
All right, let's see what's going on here. Has he called it even a lie? Ugh. Doesn't seem like it. Oh, thank you so much to Joe Pierce for the super chat. Hey, Luke, here's a copay for your counseling session with JOP. No, thank you, but thank you so much for that super chat. All right, I don't want to watch this. I want to watch one of his, debates. He's so whack when he does these debates. Maybe he has a folder of them. Men's conference. Bible thumper. Interesting. Jesse debates. That's 2019. Here, let's see. When he interviews people, it's just so hilarious. Ooh, this should be interesting. Mr. Girl?
Hi parents, my name is Max. I'm a 33-year-old man and I play video games with your children online. You know, as a parent, it can be really hard to understand what your child is going through. You may be asking yourself, how did my little buddy turn into a bloodthirsty sociopath? Well, with my help, you can become one too.
Oh, I love it. I love it. It's so good.
Welcome to the Father State. I am Jesse Lee Peterson. Thank you so much for being with me. Don't forget, the Father State is on Subscribe Star. Click the link in the video description to support our work. I do appreciate it. Work! Our work. I have with me Max Carson. He is a host on the YouTube channel, Mr. Girl. Max, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Jesse.
Yeah, I was going over some of your videos, and they're very, very interesting. So I want to know what's important to you.
Well, I think the country is too divided, and I am interested in kind of trying to get people to understand each other across those party lines.
And what is it that people need to understand?
That other people are human, no matter how disgusting or depraved or vile we think these people are. They're human just like you and me.
Are you surprised at the way...
So a lot of people, how do I say this? A lot of people seem to have that thought and think it's like revolutionary. And I know it's hard to remember that all people are human with hearts. And what I want to hear, because this is what I work every day to like remind myself of, then what? Okay, we need to work to recognize that people are human, but you need to elaborate. It's kind of like, I remember a lot growing up in church. It was like, you need to have a relationship with God. And that's like, that was the end of it so many times. And I was like, is anyone else confused about what that means? Like, how do I do that? That's what I feel like with this. If someone says, we need to recognize everyone is human, what you really are trying to say is we need to learn to like engage with everyone as if they're a human with a life and a heart and all these things. Maybe crank them up a little bit. And they never seem to like explain. So how do we work as people to engage in a positive manner with people who fundamentally disagree with us? And then what I don't like is a lot of times I won't like deal with tough examples. So like one of the things that sounds nice to say is you should be able to get along with people that disagree with you. And I agree with that sentiment. That's like an awesome sentiment. And I have tons of people in my life that I have great relationships with that I disagree with politically a ton. But it's much more difficult than just recognizing that you disagree and moving past it. Because like, for example, something I was talking with some people close to me recently about, if you think it's like fundamentally wrong to be LGBTQ, then we have like a real mountain to climb here in our relationship, because I'm sitting across from someone who I want to love, I want to get along with, who like looks across the table and sees a sin, or like sees a broken, bad, blasphemous individual, right? So how do we like get past that? And that's why I'm not going to do this long rant, but I always hear him say this and many other people, hey, we just need to all get along and we all need to recognize each other as human. Yes, it's much deeper than that. And we have to help people understand that here's how you actually, in specific examples, carry that forward. what does it mean to treat others like they're humans, you know?
Human beings treat one another.
Yeah, it's pretty horrible sometimes.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think a lot of us have trouble looking in the mirror, and so when we see something in somebody else that reminds us of something we don't like in ourselves, we lash out in fear and disgust.
Amazing. So, Max, are you Christian or Jewish?
I'm actually an atheist.
You're an atheist.
I'm an atheist.
But are you like a Jewish atheist or a Christian atheist?
Well,
That's the stupidest question I've ever heard. You could be, you know, Jewish and an atheist. Can you be Christian and atheist? No, because obviously Jewish is kind of dual meaning. Christian, I think, is just a religion. I don't know about that.
Because I can tell if you would. Some people, I read some of your things. People say you're Jewish, but I can't tell.
Well, so race-wise, I'm part Jewish, but
okay.
I grew up celebrating Christmas and Easter like a good little American. But I was raised with no religion whatsoever, so I never went to church or synagogue.
Nice. And so, how would you describe? You say you're an atheist. What is that exactly?
I don't believe in God.
Do you believe there is a God, or you don't believe in a God?
I think there is no God.
Really? And why do you think that?
I guess that's just what I was raised to believe. But I think most people from my hometown of Amherst, Massachusetts, most people I knew there were also atheists.
They must be using a weird video system for him to call in on, because I've seen him in other things and his camera quality's fine. I don't know why it looks all weird.
Yes, there's not a lot of religion there.
Oh, and so were your parents non-religious as well?
Yeah, my parents were non-religious and my grandparents were non-religious. So my family is very atheist in general.
Really?
Yeah.
What is it like not to believe in a God or to believe there is no God? For you, what is life like?
Well, it's kind of scary knowing that or believing that I'm just going to die meaninglessly.
I hear that so often. More often, honestly, from people who do believe in God saying to people who don't, isn't it scary? But I also hear from people who don't believe in God saying it's scary that it's all going to go black. Without diving into my own beliefs too much, I don't know if I definitely believe like something, the energy and soul that like drives us, I do think will exist in some capacity. If you want to call that heaven or whatever. But the idea, if you told me today, like if an all-powerful being came down and was like, you're just going to die and it's all going to be over at the end of life. Okay, cool. What's so scary? What's so sucky about that? Like, I've never understood that. Well, can you imagine if there was no heaven or no hell? Like, and if you just went nowhere and it was just silence? But I would be dead. So like, why would I care? What would be scary about being dead? Because I would be dead. Like I would be nothing. There would be nothing. I wouldn't be thinking about the fact that I wasn't living because I would be dead. It's never clicked. The idea of like living a really cool life and then laying down one day and being like, I'm out. Cool. And I mean that, like, you know, falling asleep and dying would be cool. Or on like a bunch of painkillers. No, not like that. Whoa. That's not what I meant. I mean, like, even if I'm not peacefully dying in my sleep, as long as I'm not like feeling tons of pain while I'm dying, then I'm cool. So if they put me on good painkillers while I'm passing away, then doesn't sound too scary to me.
And disappear forever, and that there's no heaven or hell. And I think religious people seem to have this sense of safety, like somebody's watching and cares about them, and I just don't have that.
And so where do all of your conflict come from?
Oh, by the way, guys, fun announcement. Tomorrow, I think, if the part that I'm waiting for comes in, it's a little HDMI splitter. I'm gonna have chat on screen, not like the Twitch stuff. It won't look like that. It'll literally be like my YouTube chat just put onto screen. But I think I'll make chatting more fun, because then you can be like watching and glancing down instead of looking over or whatever. I know you can have it on there, but anyways, it'll make it fun too for people watching it after the fact. Like if I ever release footage from these things, and then chat will be there, so that'll be fun.
Where does it come from? You have inner conflict. Where does that come from?
I think that
Do I believe in the right to die, as in like assisted suicide? The specifics of that, I would want to like do a lot of deliberation on. But generally, do I think someone who, you know, has chronic cancer and they're in a lot of pain and they want to go and like have assisted suicide, then definitely.
you're saying that like
I do support that, I guess is my point.
religious people have inner conflict because they have a tug of war with their morality.
No, all people have conflict. They experience fear and doubt and worry, loneliness, depression, suicidal thought. A void is missing. A void within them, as though something is missing. And they're up and down emotionally. They feel good, they feel bad, they feel good. Then they want to jump off a bridge. Where does those emotions come from for you?
My girlfriend. No, sometimes my girlfriend. I think a lot of my childhood, like many people, was traumatic or difficult, and then since then, my kind of relationship with the world has been pretty difficult. I started writing when I was in high school, and from then and then college, and then now with my YouTube channel, I've had many different instances of kind of like mobs of people being very, very angry at me. And so that also provides quite a bit of inner conflict.
Doug said taking baby steps towards libertarianism. I don't think you know what libertarianism is, bro. Literally, since the beginning of time, really, like, progressive people have agreed on a few fundamental issues with libertarians. And it's about, like, freedom to be and, like, I think progressives stand up best for liberty. So in some situations, libertarians do that well. Like, a lot of libertarians would agree with progressives on getting out of needless wars and stuff like that. So,
and why do you care what they think or say?
Because I love them.
But if you love them, you wouldn't care.
What?
Well, I don't think that's true. I love people, and so it hurts me when they hate me.
And so do you get your identity from people?
No. I think I have a pretty strong sense of self, or I get it from some people, maybe friends and girlfriend, people in my personal life, more than I get it from online.
Amazing. So I definitely want to ask you about your...
Don't get your identity from online. That will lead you down a horrible path.
Girlfriend. Yeah. I read that you were raised with, as you just said, you have no religion. So were you raised by your father and mother, or just mother?
My parents divorced when I was 10, and then they both married women.
They both married women?
They both married women.
Your mother married a woman too?
My mother married a woman.
What the? And
I know.
What did that have an impact on you when she did that?
Somewhat. I think the impact was more that she broke up our little nuclear family by leaving, and then.
See, this is another reason why, like, creating a society where people feel comfortable exploring and then expressing and identifying as who they are, identifying with who they actually are, is just better for everyone. Because you see these situations where someone being gay ends up like breaking up a whole family because they weren't able to accept that about themselves before they lived this life that wasn't true to themselves. You know what I mean? Like if you're a person who tries to suppress that and then you live 20 years and you try to have a wife so that you can blah, 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 and then you end up cheating on your wife because you're actually gay, blah, blah, blah. Like that ends up causing problems when if you had just accepted that you're gay earlier on, like you could have lived a beautiful, happy life with a guy, speaking about a guy, but then, you know, a girl with a girl. And it's like, there's so many externalities that are so negative that are caused by this society that a lot of conservatives wants to live in, where like if you're not this one archetype, you need to feel horrible about it and suppress the parts about you that aren't like societally appropriate or whatever.
The woman she married kind of hated me, and then my mother sort of started hating men. So,
Amazing. And
yeah,
so did you go
this is
live?
pretty awful.
Did you go live with your mother after that? I mean, your father after that, or?
I lived with both.
Oh, okay.
Half with each parent, and then when I was 16, my mother told me to go live with my father full time.
And did you get along with the stepmother with your father's
No.
wife?
Sort of. Why? I think she just didn't want kids.
She didn't like kids?
Not really, no.
And when you would tell your father, this lady don't like
This is getting oddly personal, oddly quickly.
me, she doesn't like kids. What would he say
No.
about that?
I was a little more easygoing when I was 16, so I kind of just tried my best to tiptoe around everybody.
Amazing, man. When you were growing up, is it true that your mother told you gender is a social construct?
She did say that, and that was you've got to remember that this is.
I know why people say that. I've said that before. It's correct, but like everything is. So it's not. That can't be the end of your explanation about gender. There's so much more for people to understand, because like everything about the way that we speak about and understand the world is socially constructed. Now, we can recognize there's truths that are kind of separate from just the whims of our societal forces and stuff like that. Like, you know, a tree has always been a tree, but the way in which we describe, interact with, all those things, the way we interact, describe and interact with those fundamental truths are social constructs. Like we decide how we want to describe even things that are separate from humans, like exist, you know? So yeah, I think it's a little reductive when you kind of just end the conversation there.
Amherst, this very liberal town, so they're probably 15 or 20 years ahead of where everybody else was. So this was in 1999. It was pretty widely accepted in my little town that gender is a social construct. Yeah.
So I'm black and slow. I don't know exactly what that means when someone says that.
Just so you know,
You're told.
it can't be ignored that he's being deeply, deeply hateful and racist right there. Like, yes, he is a black man, but that does not excuse him every time he wants to say, haha, I'm like slow, to say I'm black and slow. That's just not at all something that needs to be excused. Even though he is black, doesn't matter. You cannot use your identity to demean people of your same identity. It's just, obviously there's bounds. You have more room to make jokes, of course, about your own identity, but he does this constantly, like calling black people all sorts of things. It's really upsetting.
That you gender is a social construct. What's a social construct with gender?
What does you being black have to do with this?
I'm slow. Well, I am black. Can you tell? Can you see me?
I see that you're black, but what do you think black people are slow?
No, I said I am.
But what does it matter that you're
I
black?
didn't say black people. I said I'm black and slow, and I don't know what gender. Gender is a social construct. Yeah, what is social construct when it comes to
the James Brown song? Say it loud. I'm black and I'm
black
slow.
and I'm proud, but I'm black and I'm slow.
Okay.
What the?
It means that the roles that we play in society and the way the meaning that we derive from being a man or being a woman is human generated. There's nothing inherent to being a man or being a woman from our biology that makes us fit into society the way that we do.
Right. And always you can clearly specify, but there is inherent biological things to being male and female, you know, your sex, but all of the societal like construction that we build on top of that is up to us. And some of it is more connected to biological things, like why do men play more physical sports? Well, actually that is because most, you know, people who have the gender of being a man are also born biological male, and biological males, of course, have physical advantages inherently. But most of what we assign to being man or woman is very socially constructed, and you can see that in history, like shifts in the different roles and stuff, and the different attributes that people saw to be masculine and feminine and stuff like that.
Really? And do you believe that's true?
I think that's an oversimplification. I think it's somewhat true, but obviously if you look at like mice or like bees, like, you know, the males and females do have distinct roles in their society. So I think it's somewhat true.
But when we are born, we automatically know that boys know that they are boys and girls know that they are girls, and there's no question or doubt about it. It's not something that is assigned to us by human beings. We were created that way by God.
It's just, you could never get someone like Jesse Lee Peterson to understand this, because he, for one, probably doesn't want to, but two, like I talked about earlier, is horrible at understanding any of these topics. Because yes, you are born like biologically male or female or intersex, but we've created a whole identity that goes along with that, and that is what is not inherent. That is what is not something, you know, the second that you're, you know, come out into the world or whatever.
So is that true?
I don't think that's true.
Why not?
Well, I think that if you look at the way men act in like Japan and the way that men act in like South Central LA, they're very different.
Right.
So what it means to be a man, it can be a very different, or like a Korean pop star. If you look at them compared to like, you know, Sylvester Stallone in like the 80s, masculinity, clearly that's clearly not all biology. I think there's a lot of cultural influence on how we express our masculinity.
But you're talking about the outer environment. If you live in a crazy environment, then you start doing crazy things because you become like what you hate, right? So you start doing crazy things and acting like the men in Japan is naturally, well, it all depends on how their environment, but they're going to act differently than the blacks in South Central LA, because the blacks in South Central LA is coming from an angry, out of control environment, whereas the men in Japan, so where it's coming from a different environment where it's
okay,
not.
First of all, setting aside the stupid analysis there, he's almost proving the point that Max was trying to make. Like, yeah, so environments, you're saying because they come from a certain environment, they act differently. Environments shape which roles we step into, and which attributes we find to be admirable and all these things. Thank you so much to Jared for the super chat. Jared. He said, "Sup, Luke, I'll be catching up on the stream on the drive back to Houston tomorrow, playing a show tonight in Sherman, Texas, if any of the bees are in the area." If anyone who's watching right now is near Sherman, Texas, go watch Jared's band. He didn't give much information. Oh, I meant to mention that Ivana Trump passed away, so that's news. I don't know much about her at all, but she passed away, so heart goes out to her family. I was gonna look up Sherman, Texas. Where the heck is Sherman, Texas? Wait, hold up. Everyone just hold on for a second. You're getting out of hand while I look up this Sherman. There we go. Okay. Y'all, I almost put this up on screen. Oh, that's way too far from me. I literally, almost pulled my Google Maps over on screen so that y'all wouldn't be bored, so that we could look at how far Sherman is from me. And it would have just had my address on screen. That was almost really stupid. Wow.
So out of control, but still, that doesn't take away from the fact that they are male and female. But
Well, I think I guess I think it's hard to exactly draw the line where the environment ends and nature begins. In a couple hundred years, we might look back at our environment, or even Japan's environment or whatever, and say, oh, that was crazy from our perspective. I think it's you can't see it if you're in it.
When I was growing up, men were tougher. They understood how to lead the wife and the children. They made the children work, and they taught us not to be a fear, don't worry, don't have all that stuff. And so men grew up inwardly tough, not all emotional and sensitive like a woman, right? And so because of the environment, we were raised that way, not to care about what other people say or think about you, work hard, taking care of yourself, love everyone, even your enemy. And now that has all changed because the environment has changed. And the men are the same as the woman in the way that they act, but that doesn't make them a woman. They are men or males acting like the woman, weak and emotional and fearful and angry and stuff like that. But they still a male.
Nothing like wrapping up some transphobia and misogyny all in one. They're just men pretending to be weak, what did he say? Angry, all those things. That's why it makes me so annoyed about people who are like, listen, I'm not misogynistic. I just think that, men and women are better at different things. Like men, how do I say this? They're good at being strong and courageous and brave and providing for their family and having integrity and dignity and being humble and and women are caretakers and sensitive. It's like what? Just because you said that's not misogyny at the beginning doesn't mean anything. People always do that. I've been hearing that so much lately in debates. People are like, I just think men and women are good at different things, and they list off a bunch of really awesome things for being a man, and then they're like, hey, and women are good at supporting husbands and stuff. It's like, what?
Oh, that didn't change who they are, really are.
I don't think showing your emotions is weak.
Why not?
I think showing emotions is the pinnacle of strength, because so many guys I grew up with were so afraid of articulating and expressing their feelings, and the reason is because they were afraid of the feeling of being vulnerable. So fear to me is not a very being afraid of something like that is not strong to me. You're not a strong person for being terrified of feeling vulnerable. No, I think having the courage and bravery to express yourself and be in tune with your emotions and then be able to communicate that to the people around you who are important in your life is the pinnacle of strength.
I don't think being vulnerable is weak. I agree that if you show your emotions, people maybe can hurt you more, but I don't think that's a sign of weakness. If you can show your emotions and still stand strong, then that takes even more strength than it does to hide them.
Do you think that it's a normal state of being to be vulnerable and emotional for a man?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well, it's not. It's an abnormal state of being. At what age were you when your mother told you gender is a social construct? How old were you at that time?
I think I was 14.
And how do you remember how you reacted to that?
Yeah, I said I don't want to talk about this.
That's right. And she didn't want you to be a man.
I don't think so.
That's amazing.
I know.
Do you think that has something to do with the way you see things now?
Sure. I think it's inevitable.
So then you know that what she told you was wrong then, right?
First of all,
Yeah, I mean, even if you believe that,
you can take it too far. Don't ever tell your child that they should not be the gender that they are. Only accepting them if they aren't is awesome. But trying to pressure them, that's horrible.
I think telling a 14-year-old that is a complicated, is a thing you should handle delicately. And I think she was enjoying making me uncomfortable by saying it.
That's amazing. Have you forgiven her for that?
No.
And why not?
Because she hasn't given me any reason to.
She has given you a reason to. You're miserable on the inside, so that's a reason to forgive her so you can be free. What the?
I think forgiving her would just make me more miserable.
Why? Why do you think that?
Because I just don't I don't want any type of relationship with her.
You don't have to have a relationship with her to be forgiven. You can go free and overcome the trauma.
This is getting
I guess I don't think there is any
intense.
overcoming.
Yeah, there
trauma.
is.
I don't
Man, diving into the deep stuff.
think so.
Are you joking or are you serious?
I'm serious.
And why is that?
I think you can kind of integrate it into your life.
Do y'all think that Jesse Lee Peterson is playing a character? I've always wondered that. Is he genuinely like this, or do you think it's kind of a character for TV?
Or not let it ruin your life totally, but it's going to partially ruin your life. I mean, that's why it's important not to traumatize your kids, because they can't really ever get over it.
They can get over it, they just don't know how. Do you plan to get married to have children one day?
I don't know.
Well, if you do and you get married in the state of being, you're going to end up traumatizing your children in the same way that you've been traumatized. You may not do the same action or use the same words, but it would be the same spirit.
Yeah, I get your line of thought here. I just don't agree. I think the opposite. I think that if you delude yourself into thinking that you're cured or fixed, and that you've let go of your feelings, then I think that person is likely to traumatize their kids in the same way.
And so you're just going to live a life of misery your whole life? Life
not
of
miserable.
hell? What?
I'm not miserable all the time, just sometimes.
Amazing. So what was it like living with your father? Are you close to him?
No.
You're not.
This is so weird. Why are we interviewing him about his personal life? This is bizarre.
No.
Do you want to be closer to him?
No.
You do not.
No. I don't speak to either of my parents.
That's amazing, man.
I know, it's been like 10 years.
Do you have anger?
Yeah.
And what is anger to you? What do you feel like with the anger? What's that like for you? How do you know you have it?
I just feel.
What? How do I know that I have anger? I feel something, and I remember that I've been told to call this feeling anger. So that's about as far as I know.
Rage. do I know I have it? I think it's a physical
This
feeling.
is so uncomfortable.
I feel rage in my body. And then I would look at my behavior. I mean, like, yelling at people, or making videos that are very aggressive, making music that's very aggressive. I think anger is when you very aggressively wish things were different.
Oh,
Is that a normal state of being or an abnormal state of being?
I don't know. I don't know. I see other people as quite a bit more repressed, so I don't know.
I just got deeply disturbed. That was disgusting.
I don't know if I'm really more angry or if I'm just showing it more. I can't tell.
Oh, okay. Do you believe that, in good and evil? You believe there's good and there's evil?
No, but I believe in I don't believe in an objective good and evil, but I believe in my own versions of good and evil.
So where do you get your idea of your concept of right and wrong from? Where does that come from?
Probably like a collectivist mentality of like, if we all stole, then society would fall apart. So that's wrong. It's wrong to be a hypocrite. It's wrong to do things that would destroy your life if somebody did them to you.
So you think you are being right and honest by just acting out and doing whatever you're feeling and thinking?
Well, I don't do whatever I'm feeling and thinking. I would say I express my emotions openly, but it's not like I'm not doing whatever pops into my head. I'll talk about whatever pops into my head, but I don't do whatever pops into my head.
And why do you talk about whatever pops up in your head? Why do you talk about that?
I think that's kind of my little role I've carved out for myself in my life. That I think that's part of my humanization project of telling other people the dark, scary, or vulnerable things that I'm thinking, so that they might feel more human themselves.
Amazing. Do you think you would be a hypocrite if you didn't do that?
At this point, now that I've said I'm doing it, yeah, I think it would be pretty hypocritical for me to hide that those uglier parts of myself.
And why is that? What good does it do anyone to hear all your little demons in your head?
So that they know that they're not alone with the demons in theirs.
And how would that help them?
I think a lot of people feel disgusted with themselves.
They do.
Yeah, and I think knowing that they're more human than they thought helps them, even if they
This guy, this is the trippiest conversation.
Revolted by me in the process.
And do you create your own thoughts?
I think that depends on your perspective, but generally, yes.
And how do you create your own thought? All your little demon thoughts and all your so-called good thoughts, and how do you create them? What do you do? What are the steps to creating those things in your head?
Well, I think most of them are involuntary, but things happen to you. You have to make sense of them. And some of the ways we move through the world, we don't think about, like a fish doesn't think about swimming. But if you look back at your life or look at your behavior, I think then you can understand more about how you function and what must be under the hood.
So, but do you personally think that, or believe that Max is creating all these different thoughts in his head? Do you think you're in charge of that?
I don't think I'm in charge of it. I think it's involuntary, like my heart beating. So I'm doing it, but I can't control what I think.
Right.
I think to some degree you can try to suppress what you think, or you can say, okay, today I'm going to focus on this topic. But I don't think
I don't think the comparison to a heart is accurate. Like, you have a lot more control over your thoughts than you do your heart. I mean, there's stuff you can do to change your heartbeat, of course, but that's like physical. You have an effect, but thoughts are interesting because there's an involuntary nature to them, but you can like master it and make it fully voluntary. There's some people who literally can really effectively control their own mind. I'm not that person. Part of the reason I have such a hard time sleeping is my brain gets so dang loud at night, so I can't go to sleep, but some people can. So I do think there's like a involuntary nature, so it'll run if you don't focus on it, but if you focus on it, you can, control your thoughts.
You can control like the total makeup of your beliefs and feelings. I think that's just something that happens.
That's true. Like who you are and a lot of why you are the way that you are is not really controlled by you, but you can change a lot.
And so if you're not in charge of creating that or those and feeling that way, who is?
Nobody.
Nobody? Somebody has, or something has to be giving you different thoughts to feel and think and cause you to go up and down emotion. Somebody or something has to be in charge of that. They just don't happen by themselves.
Who's in charge of your heart beating?
God.
I don't know if I like that better, actually. I'm going to keep looking for other colors.
He put the inner workings of it to happen on his own. But he set it up where each function would cause the heart to beat.
To me, it's like, okay, how do I say this? Whenever people pretend like it's absolutely absurd to believe that some act of, science created life, I feel like we can all agree whatever caused all this to happen is crazy. Like, wow. So whether you believe that's an intentional being who put it all into motion or an act of like a complete accident based on forces of energy and stuff like that, I don't think either is more or less insane. I think both are like, whoa. Either way, that's crazy and hard to explain. Because Jesse does this in like all of his interviews where he'll go, well, if you don't believe in a God, then how could you explain your heartbeat? How is that beating? And it's like, okay, Max's answer is it just sort of happened that way. And your answer is like a all-powerful being set that in motion. Both are pretty hard to explain and like wild. So I think in both directions, there's no need for shame on that front.
But then it happens on its own.
It happens on its own in that it was influenced by a higher source to happen. It doesn't just happen on its own, right? It was influenced by a higher, what I call God, to cause it to happen.
So I guess I disagree about that first step, but I think that thoughts are the same way. I think that sure, you're born and your brain is formed, and however that happens, it happens. But after that, I think it's just a wind-up clock. It's doing its own thing.
So I wanted to ask, because of the way you present your show and everything, YouTube, and the way you're speaking now, I don't know if you want to say or not, I understand it. Are you like acting, or you really, is this really who you are?
This is the first like good question, because I'm curious about that with him too.
The way you...
No, this is actually how I am.
So it's not just an act?
No, it's not an act. I don't. People accuse me of acting a lot. I don't understand. People accuse you of acting too.
Yeah. I want to ask you, do you believe that I saw your video on racism, by the way. Do you believe that racism exists?
Oh, yes. That's way better. Admit it. That's way cooler. the new backdrop. That's cool.
And what is racism?
I think racism is when you hold individuals accountable for your perception of their group as a whole. When you make assumptions about people based on how they look and then treat them
Wait. What did the answer
poorly
he gave?
because of those. I think racism is when you
I timed that perfectly.
hold individuals accountable for your perception of their group as a whole. When you make assumptions about people based on how they look and then treat them poorly because of those assumptions. And when you hold
that was a horrible response. That is not at all what racism is. I know this is kind of like a simple, but it is what it is. Racism is just treating someone negatively because of their race, not the way they look. Because I think it's perfectly justified to negatively treat someone negative based on your visual scan of them. Like, for example, if someone walks up and is holding a knife, you're judging the way that they look or the way that they're acting. But let's not say that. Let's say someone has like a Nazi tattoo on their face. I can judge the way that you look and treat you poorly because of it. It's whenever it's something like race, which is racism, where you can't change your race and there's no justification to be hateful towards someone purely because of, the race they were born as it. So I feel like this definition includes way too many things. Whoops.
negative feelings about people because of how they look.
We're as far as political, where do you stand? Are you liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican? Where are you on that?
I'm definitely not a Trump supporter. I really don't like Trump. I've never voted for a Republican in my life, but I would say that I'm a centrist. I have views. Sometimes, I have guns, and I am pro Second Amendment. I'm pro free speech. And
that means what? That means that you're a conservative? No. Both people on both sides are anti-free speech when it works for them. People on both sides, on guns, you can own a gun and recognize that we should have good regulation. That is so irritating. That's like saying, let me think about that. Like, let's say that I was 21 and I thought, and I drank because I was 21, and I thought that the drinking age should be higher. I could do those two things simultaneously. Right now it's legal and I drink, and it shouldn't be. And if it wasn't, then I wouldn't. Like, if you think it's a good societal prescription to have higher regulation on guns, but you have a gun and you got it through easy means because of the way that the laws are right now, that's not a contradiction. That doesn't mean you're conservative just because you have a gun.
Mostly pro-choice, but I have some mixed feelings about that. I don't really subscribe to any particular political group.
What is it about the Great White Hope that you don't support?
Steve, I get the point you're making about his definition including that, but you got to do some soul searching, brother. Because women wearing leggings does not mean they've given up or they're sloppy. I disagree with that opinion. It means they're wearing something that is comfortable, probably.
The Great White Hope. Can you be more specific about what you mean there, Jesse?
I don't frankly have time for total political correctness, and this country doesn't have time either.
That's the Great White Hope.
That Great White Hope.
That Great White Hope. Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Why is it you don't support him? What is it that you disagree with?
I don't think he respects the First Amendment.
You don't think the
he-
president respects the freedom of speech?
No, he doesn't at all. Trump went after comedians who made jokes about him and tried to get some sort of action to punish them for that. He's gone after journalists that he didn't like. He didn't like Kaepernick's freedom of expression, which is, freedom of speech. It falls into that. Using his First Amendment to protest during a football game, saying that he should be fired for that. No, Trump is not like pro free speech.
No.
Why? I mean, he's totally for that.
I don't think so.
Why? What has he done to imply that he doesn't?
He's made remarks about punishing news organizations for
Yep.
stories he doesn't like. He would call them inaccurate, but either way, the government should not talk about.
It's not. No. What? Gosh, he's failing so miserably. No, he took action. He sued. I think it was it Bill Maher or? I think it was Bill Maher. I can't remember the specifics, but it was more than him just saying that a story was false.
Or threaten to shut down news organizations for saying things the government doesn't like. He said that he wanted to ban Muslims from entering the country, which is a religious persecution that can't happen under the First Amendment.
But they're not. They're not part of our. We are a Christian country, and Muslim.
I literally can't do my separation from church and state rant right now because I've done like 2 segments recently, and I'm just so tired of how stupid people are. But we're not a Christian country. We are heavily influenced because a lot of people are Christian. Yes, but no, we're not like a Christian government or anything like that because we have separation of church and state. Go watch my videos on either Charlie Kirk or Lauren Boebert for more information.
And the Jews, they're worthy of death because they're infidels. Why would you want that, bring your enemy into your country knowing that they're your enemy?
Well, that's what's so tough about the First Amendment, is that you have to allow people who you think hate you and who maybe you hate to say what they think and to practice the religion that they believe in, even if that religion says that you're going to go to hell.
But they can practice it, just not in our home. They can still be Allah.
You're disgusting, Jesse. No, that's what freedom of speech is. They can practice it in our home too, not our house, but in America.
Our land and do their own thing with their little so-called religion, right? We just don't want them here doing that. I mean, you know that they hate the Christians and Jews. Why wouldn't you want to ban them from your country?
The First Amendment.
It's for the American people. It's not for the outsiders.
True, but
there are Muslim Americans. What?
It creates a conflict of the First Amendment when you are telling, there's a lot of Muslims in the country, so you're telling people like your family members can't come here, not because of what country they're in, but because of their religion. It's still a religious persecution that's not allowed under the First Amendment.
But it's not just because of their religion. It's because they disagree with Christianity. They hate it. They would kill them.
Shut up. Okay. What is happening? Saying you're going to ban an entire or multiple countries from traveling here because they're majority like Muslim is just religious, bigotry. So also, what? Okay, I can't. Their feelings towards Christians isn't relevant to whether or not like we should be in our own right to deny people from immigrating here because of their religion. It's so weird.
And
yeah,
and
I
so
get why you don't.
Muslims aren't just coming here wanting to kill Christians. That's stupid.
I understand why you don't. I get why you don't like Muslims.
It's
but
not, I don't dislike them. I'm just saying, if I know you're gonna kill me,
Oh, xenophobia. Gotcha. Sorry.
I'm not gonna invite you to come to my home.
Sure. Well, I've met a lot of Muslims and worked with Muslims and been friends with Muslims, and none of them have killed me. But
That's because you're not a Christian or Jew.
But whatever you feel about that religion, or whatever people feel, whatever people on the left feel about Christians, whatever anybody feels about Jews, it is still a violation of the First Amendment to wall a religion out from entering the country.
That's not true.
Okay.
It's a violation if they are citizens of this country, not if they're outside the country. I want to ask, how do you feel, or what's your opinion about the way that most black people feel about white people? Most black people, the blacks, they hate the whites, and they blame the whites for all of their failure, all of their downfall, all their inabilities, and everything. What do you think about that?
So irritating.
I think a lot of black people do hold resentment towards white people. I don't think all of them do.
No, not all, but most do.
Towards like the average white person, I don't agree with that. I think most of them hold resentment towards the history of white people and the oppression they enacted, but I don't think it's true that the majority of black people walk around having hateful feelings towards just some random, white Joe.
I don't know if it's most, but it's a lot. I agree with that. Yeah.
And so what do you think? Why is that, and is that right?
It's understandable. Is it right? Probably not. No. I think if you don't want people to be racist to you, then you shouldn't be racist to other people. And I think that liberals have a tendency to sidestep that point. And so they're very hands-off when black people are racist towards white people. They're very understanding and careful about it, and say they won't even call it racism. But I think that ultimately, if we want a country where people don't hate each other based on the color of their skin, then we all kind of have to let it go.
And when you say it's understandable that most of the blacks, not all of them, not all, but most of them hate white people, what's understandable about that?
Well, slavery.
Slavery what?
I think slavery started a lot of really bad feelings.
Why do you think that?
Well, I think slavery made black people feel really bad at the time because they were told that they were subhuman. And although slavery has been abolished and we are now equal under the law, I still think that black people have, and sometimes still do, occupied a lower rung in society than white people. And I think that makes many black people resentful.
So you think that the black slave owners made other black slaves feel that way?
No. Are you what black slave you're talking about, like in Africa?
No, in America there are many black slave owners as well. It wasn't just white people owning the black, it was black people owning blacks as well. And are you saying that those black people made other black people feel the way they feel today?
Yeah, they certainly played a part in it, sure, yeah.
Amazing. So if that's true, why is it that after slavery ended, black people did much better then than they are today, as far as family, businesses, not blaming anyone, appreciating America?
Aren't those measurements? Let's measure the success of a community, or like of a population of people, a generational population, by how much they appreciated America. Not off, GDP growth or like average income growth or educational status or employment, or let's measure it on How often do they blame people? That's very quantifiable.
They didn't judge their fellow man, but they loved their fellow man. And so they did very well with everything. Why did they do better right after slavery than they are today when they can really do what they want today?
I think there's a moment after your tormentor lets you go.
Why is he taking JLP's question at face value? No, just say, well, that's not what happened. Like, we've been in a state of racial divisiveness since that time, and generally it's gotten better as time has gone by, like over the long term. So no, it wasn't like they were freed and awesome with what white people did to them, and now they're all of a sudden like bitter. No. But even this whole analysis bothers me so much. Just all of this is so ugh.
Where you just want to kiss their feet and you just feel grateful. And then I think the rage comes later. I also think that it's probably a very exciting time. It's exciting to rise up. So if you're going from being a slave to just being, you know, on a lower rung of society, that's still a huge difference. So that was probably very exciting and elating, I would even say. But then if you stagnate at that lower rung of society, I could see that resentment would start to creep back in.
So you're saying that after slavery ended, and for years black people were doing quite well, that they were doing that because they were kissing
That's not true. Compared to how they're doing now, they were not doing well. That's so stupid.
The white man?
No, I'm not saying they were kissing the feet of the white man, but I'm saying that it's understandable that you would just feel like good about being freed during those years.
So,
and I think it's also
finish your point.
I just think it's also understandable that as you see that you're actually not really still being treated like equals, that you would then, you know, get pissed off again.
So you're saying, if I'm hearing you correctly, that for years black people did very well because they were so happy to be free. And then...
why is he accepting this? This is not... What?
And we're not thinking about slavery anymore. They're not into it. But then somehow or another, generations later, after my generation, they realize, oh, my ancestors were enslaved. Let me feel bad and let me start begging and fighting and blaming. They all of a sudden remembered.
I guess I also don't know if I agree that they were doing well.
I grew up in that time during the Jim Crow law. My parents and my grandparents and their parents, and they weren't into all this mess.
What mess? Being angry?
Blaming, being angry, robbing and stealing and raping, wanting reparations and affirmative actions and all that kind of stuff. They would.
But that's when affirmative action started, was when... Wait. Did he say his parents or his grandparents? It would be in his life when, like, programs like that started being enacted. In his parents' life, yeah, they weren't wanting affirmative action because they were still trying to get equal rights. They were still drinking out of different water fountains. They were still being, discriminated against in law. So, of course, they weren't thinking multiple steps ahead. They were just trying to get their basic rights first.
Not into all that at all.
And you're asking me to explain it to you. You're saying you don't understand it?
Yeah,
I can understand. I can understand you're saying you don't feel it, but like you're saying you don't understand it. You don't get why black people are angry.
Right. I don't understand. I know why they're angry, but it's not because of slavery. All of a sudden, the generation that had nothing to do with slavery, everything is handed to them, and all of a sudden they had a certain thought about slavery, and they started to give up on life because they had a thought about slavery that they know nothing about. And the way that history has been rewritten about slavery is not true. I can't believe you think that all of a sudden they remember something that they were never involved in.
No, I'm not saying they're remembering slavery. I just think slavery is like a kind of like emblematic example. It's a very tangible example of being treated like you are lower.
Amazing. And how?
Okay.
Give me an example.
This is terrible. The way you address this, you just say, listen, I am against racism in all forms. I don't think anyone, white to black or black to white, should treat each other differently based on their race. I don't think holding animus towards someone in an interpersonal reaction or interaction because of historical racism is fair. I think you should treat everyone equal and understand that it's not the fault of the person in front of you for historical oppression, but it is totally reasonable, and we should absolutely recognize the historical oppression that took place and understand how the ripple effects of that still impact us today, and do what we can as a society to uplift people and to ameliorate any of the issues that were caused by that historical oppression that we are still experiencing the effects of today. It's not about us being bitter over slavery. It's about us understanding that the start mark was slavery, and everything after it, even after the freeing of the slaves, all the time leading up to now, there's all of these things that were implemented and never addressed properly that we are still affected by. That's all we're talking about. We're not saying that you should be bitter if you're black towards someone that you meet who's white. We're not saying that there's that it's your fault as a white person for something. That's not what we're saying. We're saying as a society, all of us, not white people need to fix it or black people, all of us need to look at the state of our country right now and understand, for a bunch of reasons, many of them for the particular community that we're talking about right now, have come from a pattern of oppression that started with slavery. And so in our work to uplift everyone, we can more effectively do it for this one community by understanding where the problems originally started and how they haven't been properly solved. But that doesn't mean that we're not trying to improve everyone's lives. It doesn't mean that there's any sort of justification for racism in one direction and not the other. It's just not that hard of a thing to explain when someone brings up like, why do people have animus towards others, or why are they always bringing up slavery? Well, it's just an accurate historical analysis so that we can look at what hasn't been properly addressed through that history and address it and do what we can to improve white, black, Asian, everyone's lives in our country.
Now, a couple of examples of how they're being treated that way, and who is doing the treating. Who is doing the treating of them in that way?
I have a friend who constantly gets asked if he lives in his own apartment building.
Is he black?
He's black.
And what does that mean when they ask that?
You're not supposed to be here. What are you doing here?
And why do you think that?
I think it's because he's black. I don't know. I hear and see a lot of stories like that happening all the time to black people, and so it's subtle, or I guess that's not that subtle. And there's obviously stories of things that aren't subtle at all. But I don't think it's a policy of any apartment building to question black people in the lobby. I just think it happens.
So your friend asked a black person, "Do you live in this apartment building?"
No, my friend is the black person.
And he was asked that.
Yeah.
Could have, and I don't know, I wasn't there. Could it have been because blacks are so violent and knocking out and robbing you in the buildings now? They don't care.
Could be.
So how is that wrong then?
Well, you asked me my definition of racism. The first thing I said was holding individuals accountable for the actions of people who look like them. So I think it's wrong, even if there is a higher crime rate among black people, it is wrong to treat black people as though they're criminals.
Is there a higher crime rate amongst black people?
Yes.
Do you believe white supremacy exists?
I think that some white people think they are the best race. Yeah.
And is that what you would call white supremacy?
Yeah.
And so there are black people who think that they're the best race. Are they black supremacy?
Yes.
Amazing. Do you love
Everyone knows there's black supremacists. Yes, what? I feel like he thought that was a gotcha question.
white people?
Yes.
Nice.
I love all people, Jesse.
No, I just want to know about the white people. You love white people?
I love white people.
Nice. I want to ask you about you and your girlfriend. You guys have a very interesting relationship.
True.
And that's real, right? It's not an act, it's real.
It's real. It's all 100% real. Yeah. There's no, my channel, there's like a joke song called I'm a Pedophile. There's some other skits, but they're very clearly jokes. Anything you see that is just like me with my girlfriend, or any conversations you see with me, it's not acting. It's all real.
And your girlfriend, first name is Shaylo, right?
Shaylin.
Shaylin. Yeah, Shaylin.
Yeah, Shaylin.
Why are you with her? She seemed to be so out to lunch. Why are you with her?
Out to lunch.
What does that mean?
It's like crazy.
Yeah.
You think she's crazier than me?
No. If she was sitting there, I would ask her why she with you.
Well, see, there you go. If you have to ask us both, then
Right.
maybe we're a good match.
And how did two crazy people come together? How did that happen?
I was not finding what I was looking for on Tinder and OkCupid. And I was a nude art model in Los Angeles. And so I knew a lot of artists on Facebook because I would pose for them. So I started adding female artists on Facebook, and I ended up adding 500 women on Facebook and just messaging all the ones that I was attracted to who looked single and local. And Shaylin was one of those lucky ladies.
And so did you guys have an instant attraction when you finally met each other in person?
Yes.
And what was it that attracted you about her or toward her?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No.
Do you?
The first thing I said to her in messages was that she looked like Lady Gaga.
And she said, "Okay, nice. Let's hook up."
Yeah, there were a
This
couple
is
more
such
bumps
a
in the
weird
road.
interview.
Yeah.
And would you call your relationship, you guys' relationship, would you call that healthy?
I don't believe in healthy relationships.
I don't
think
normally
that-
use that word either.
That's so stupid.
I just couldn't think of another word. But go ahead.
Yeah, I would definitely call it uncommon. I don't think it's a normal relationship, but yeah, I think that once you get that close with people, I think societally we are just not very good at relationships yet. I think we look back at like the 50s, and when I think about the 1950s, I think that people didn't talk about anything, that everything was fake and everything was, under wraps, and it was very hard for people to connect to each other emotionally. And I think that we're still kind of stuck in that, a different version of it. But I think that I'm trying to figure out with Shaylin a way for us to be together, because I don't think that either of us really like the standard choices of how people construct their relationships.
Do you think that in a relationship that people should connect emotionally, or is there something else that should happen?
Yeah, I think people should connect emotionally, yeah.
And why? Emotions are not real, they're fake. It doesn't last, it never works. Why should they do it that way?
Well, let me say I want to do it that way. You can do whatever the hell you want. I want to connect with my partners emotionally. And why? I feel lonely if I don't. I feel like that's the whole point. To me, a relationship to me is not about like, you know, somebody to have sex with or somebody to make me dinner. It's more about emotional intimacy. That's what I want out of the relationship in the first place. I want to feel like somebody knows me and somebody is really, truly holding my hand as we plummet towards death.
That's amazing, man. This is so interesting to me. So you and Shaylin connect in that way where she take away your loneliness?
Yeah.
So you're not lonely anymore?
Sometimes, but less so.
So she doesn't take it away. It's just sometimes you don't feel that when you're with her.
Yeah.
So it's not taken away then. Do you plan to marry her? Would you like to marry her and start a family?
I would like to marry her. I don't think that I am ready to do that. We've only been together like I guess almost 3 years. A family? I don't know. I'm open to it.
So you've been together 3 years. How much time do you need to know if you...
So much of this interview is just like, let's talk about you and your personal life and like oddly intimate details.
Want to marry her and start a family?
I would like to see some more stability in our relationship. Things are definitely turbulent sometimes.
What are your thoughts about him? About who? Raul or Raul? Jesse Lee Peterson's a crazy person. And he's pretty crazy himself.
Times.
But if both
as we've all seen.
If both of you are emotionally out of control and both are
That's
crazy, and
right.
both are crazy, how do you expect it to get better if both are on the same level, the same state of being?
Yeah, so rather than repress our feelings, I still want to be very emotional and express the feelings, but I want to construct a relationship that's like a steel drum that we can bounce around the inside of without it flying apart. And right now it feels a little shaky, so there's a few more bolts I want to put in there before I want to get married.
But how will you do that if you're emotional?
I don't know. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
And so does she want to marry you and start a family with you?
Probably.
Probably.
Yeah, I assume she has some of the same reservations.
Would you consider yourself an alpha male or beta male?
I am an alpha male.
You an alpha male?
Yeah.
What's alpha about you?
When I walk into a room, everybody knows that they should care about what I have to say and what I think. I'm the dark, mysterious, interesting man in the room that everybody wants to listen to.
That sounds more like an ego male instead of an alpha male, more like a beta male.
Oh.
Yeah, you're not supposed to say, I'm the dark, mysterious guy in the room that everyone wants to listen to. You're supposed to let other people say that about you.
Well, it's hard to tell, you know. If you think highly of yourself, maybe you are a beta. I don't know.
Amazing. And so what's your impression of Joe Biden?
I told y'all that I got a meningitis vaccine right before I started streaming today. I'm just now feeling it get a little touchy over there.
I don't really have a strong impression of Joe Biden. He feels kind of just like another whatever normal president, I guess.
Oh, I wanted to ask you this and I forgot. It came across, but it disappeared. You agree that the blacks hate the whites, and not all, but most, and you think it's justified. It's not, but...
I don't think it's justified. I think it's understandable. I'm not saying it's justified.
But if you think it's understandable, that means you have to think it's justified because you think it's understandable because you think they're doing it because of slavery. And so You do think it's
I mean, I saw a guy grab a woman's ass on the subway once, and I understood why he did that. I didn't think it was justified, but I thought it was understandable. It's kind of like that. I don't think it's right.
Wait,
I
what
think
did
we
you
should all
just say?
be working towards not hating. Understood why he. I know. I don't think it's justified. I think it's understandable. I'm not saying it's justified.
But if you think it's understandable, that means you have to think it's justified because you think that it's understandable because you think they're doing it because of slavery, and so you do think it's
I mean, I saw a guy grab a woman's ass on the subway once, and I understood why he did that. I didn't think it was justified, but I thought it was understandable. It's kind of
Why
like
would you
that.
make that analogy? You end up like you could make a good point about the difference between understanding something and thinking it's okay, but when you go to an example like that, you just make it sound like you're just you know. No. Okay.
I don't think it's right. And I think we should all be working towards not hating each other, but I understand why we do. I understand why black people hate white people.
That's amazing. Do white people hate Jews? Hate the Jews?
Some of them do.
And is that understandable?
Yes.
Is it justified?
No.
And why do, as you say, some white people hate the Jews?
Because some white people believe a similar thing to what you're saying black people believe about white people. Some white people believe that the Jews are responsible for all of their problems.
And is that true?
No. It's not true, but it's understandable. Jews are overrepresented in positions of power and positions of money. And Jews also like helping other Jews. Clearly, I mean, just any time I've applied for a job, and Jews are the ones hiring, there is a feeling of like, hey, it's my nephew, you know. It's never spoken, and maybe I'm inventing it, and I'm certainly there's been Jews who don't like me and that don't feel any that way toward me at all. But yeah, I think that Jews pride themselves on sticking together, but if you're not part of the group, that sticking together starts to look like secret cooperation and scheming. And I think that some white people and some black people of all different races sometimes have a very strong reaction to that, and then think that all Jews are not are conspiring against them to.
This is legitimately one of the most bizarre conversations we've watched on here.
Do secret plots and spread evil in the world, and I don't think that is justified.
I was asked.
I do understand it.
I was asked this morning on my show, who do the Jews hate? Do you know? And I didn't know the answer to that because I don't hear the Jews really, because the Jews are doing so well with family and finance and they're just education and they seem to be close-knit. I don't hear them blaming anyone. Who do they hate?
American Jew. I mean, because like Israelis.
I don't think it's ever an accurate or reasonable statement to make that one group as a whole. Maybe sometimes if it's like, you know, deep in the cultural identity of a group to be like feuding with another group, but for the most part, ever to generalize and say like this race hates that race is just never valuable or accurate.
Pretty clearly hate Palestinians.
Why do you say that?
Have you ever talked to an Israeli or many Israeli? I used to work in Beverly Hills, and as a personal trainer. And a lot of my clients were Middle Eastern. Some of them Muslim, some of them Israeli. And talking about Muslims with Israelis, a lot of them have very, very negative opinions of Muslims, and particularly Palestinians.
I have gone to Israel and I've seen how much the Palestinians hate the Jews, and how the Jews have to defend themselves from.
Well, now wait a second.
From
Jesse,
from the Palestinians.
I thought we were talking about one group at a time. And
yeah, I'm going to get to that.
Well, no, wait a second. If you asked me who black people hate, and then I said, well, white people hate blah, blah, you would have said I shouldn't change the subject. I thought we were just talking about who Jews hate.
But I was going to ask, is that understood and justified, as you said?
It's not justified. I don't think it's justified.
Is it understood?
Yeah, it's understandable. Yeah.
Oh, understandable. Do the Palestinians hate the Jews?
Yeah.
And why?
Same reason. I mean, I think it's the same reason that all these people hate each other. They blame them for their problems.
I agree with you that one side of hating is to blame someone else for your fallen state. Because anyone that has hatred or anger is in a fallen state, and rather than seeing why, understanding why, and overcome it, they blame others for it, so they stay in that state. Amazing.
Yeah.
How about Kamala Harris? What's your impression of her?
Camila? What?
There are a couple of things. I didn't like when she called Joe Biden racist during the campaign. Yeah. And then became his vice president. That seemed very slimy and kind of gave me a bad impression of her. Other than that, I whatever. I think she's fine.
Can you see that she's dumber than a doorknob?
No, I don't think that she is dumber than a doorknob.
No, she's dumb.
Okay, you can say what you want to say about Kamala Harris, but she's definitely an intelligent person. Is she like good at coming off as likable and, effectively delivering the points that she wants to make? No. Oftentimes she's not. But is she smart? Yes. She's very, very intelligent. Just look at like her experience and all the different jobs she's had. She clearly has to be smart to succeed in that way.
I don't really think any of these. I don't think Trump is dumb either. I don't think.
No, well, we know the Great White Hope is not dumb, but we're talking about
Kamala.
Yeah,
I don't think she's dumb. Why do you think she's dumb?
Because when you listen to her, she has no real answers. She doesn't know what she's doing. She just seemed to be an empty shell. You smoke pot?
No.
That was so random.
About to say about her? Go ahead.
I think she's evasive. I agree that she doesn't really answer questions, but I don't think that's because she's dumb. I think that's because she's evasive.
Do you vote?
Yes.
And will you be voting for the Great White Hope now, after all this mess that you see in our country? And when the Great White Hope was there, Donald Trump, everything was coming back to order. Now you have something to compare it to. Can I count on you? Or would you be voting for him this time around?
Absolutely not. I will never vote for Donald Trump.
You haven't...
I don't. I think he's a traitor.
In what way?
I think he tried to organize a coup to take over the country. I think he lost the election. I think he's damaging democracy by lying about losing the election. I think he was going to either let or encourage a mob of people to kill the vice president of the United States for not certifying him.
Finally, he's actually giving good responses.
The duly elected president when he was not duly elected. Trump can never be president.
Do you just think that, or do you have proof of that?
I just think that.
Oh, well, thinking is wrong. You can't assume that about anyone, or shouldn't.
Well, I know that he said that he won the election, and there's no evidence or proof that that is true.
And so why
So, I
not
would
leave it
consider-
as that? Why don't you just leave it? If there's no evidence or proof that he did or didn't,
Well, I think there's proof that
why
he did.
not just
I
leave
think
it
there's-
as that?
I think there's proof that he did not win the election. And I think he is breaking a time-honored tradition. All of the leeway that the founding fathers left for bad behavior on behalf of the president, he has taken. He's doing everything he can to try to turn himself from a president into a king. And
Amazing.
and that is why I think he is a traitor.
Who has done most in an attempt to take away your rights? Donald Trump or Rhino Republicans and the Democratic Party now?
Donald Trump.
Really?
He tried to take away my most fundamental right, the right to vote.
That's amazing. He tried to take away your right to vote.
Yes.
Yes, if you don't respect the lawful election results, the free and fair election that took place, you are trying to disenfranchise all of the people who voted you out.
Amazing, man. Isn't that like amazing?
I don't like it. It makes me very upset.
So listen, I got to heat up this interview and put you in the hot seat.
I understand.
And so what I need you to do is answer these questions as quickly
Fast. I got
as
it.
possible. Are you
Curveballs.
you familiar with the hot seat?
No. I just get what you're. I just understand what you're saying.
The hot seat.
Will you celebrate White History Month with me in July?
Yes.
Did you get the jab?
Yes.
Is it right to have sex before marriage?
It's not wrong.
Do you support abortion?
Some.
Did Big Mama Michelle Obama eat up all the ribs?
Yes.
Oh,
Does
I
your
can't
band-
just let that play by and not like stop for a second to recognize how disgusting that is. He's so irritating.
Shit in the woods.
Yes.
Are you team Kanye or team Kim?
Kanye.
Pancakes or waffle?
Pancakes.
Does a chicken have lips?
No.
Were women created to lead or follow?
Neither.
Would you marry an educated woman?
Yes.
Is the Pope ticked?
Is the Pope what?
Ticked. The Pope, is he ticked? Is he angry?
Oh, ticked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is a man?
XY chromosomes and a penis.
Amazing. Max, thanks for taking on the hot seat. I really enjoyed talking to you, man.
I enjoy talking to you too.
Tell the folks how to get to your website,
All right. Well, that was weird. It's been a pleasure being with you all. Don't forget, if you want to support the show, become a patron at patreon.com/Luke Beasley. You get an extra bonus show once a week. I think I forgot to upload it yesterday. I filmed it, but I'll upload it right now. This week's bonus show. Love you guys, and have a wonderful rest of your night, and I'll see you tomorrow at 5 p.m.